Yes, guys, and welcome along to another episode of the Ghostoul podcast. Today we have a lady that is returning for her second interview. She must be crazy to spend another hour with Mickey. But anyway, we thank her so much. So we have the awesome, the talented Penny Griffiths-Morgan.
Are you sure you booked the right person?
I hope so.
Thank you so much for that lovely intro, Mickey.
That's all right. You deserve it. So.
Oh, pressure. You didn't add very sweaty and slightly melting to that.
I think we're all on that level at the moment. I think it's been an awful. People moan about the weather, but I think it's gone a bit too far at the moment.
I love the heat. I love the sun, but even for me today, this morning, it was too hot to sit out in it. I had to come in, and it's the fact that it's not cooling off in the evenings. That's what's now, normally I don't mind it being mega hot during the day as long as in the evening it tails off a bit. But temperatures are due to drop tomorrow, get back to the more normal for June, I think. So get some respite from it.
Yeah, what I heard that it was going to rain tomorrow. Obviously, I'm digging a grave in the morning, so that just makes sense, doesn't it?
Well, wouldn't you want it to rain to soften the ground, or would it take too long?
No, it should be fine. It's just the fact that everything becomes muddy and dirty and horrible.
Yeah, but I'm an ex-rugby player. That's what I lived for.
Oh, is it?
Muddy and dirty and horrible. If you weren't covered in mud at the end of a game, you hadn't played properly.
That is very true. When I used to play football, I used to love playing in the rain because it made it so much better, so much quicker. It's like you enjoyed it more in a weird way.
Yeah, no, I get that. If you weren't absolutely caked in mud at the end of a game, and then when you got rid of the mud, you found all the bruises. That was the fun bit, finding the bruises through the mud. It was great.
Once you've washed. Oh. That's awesome. I love that.
Oh, you've got to be a bit silly, haven't you? You've got to be a bit silly.
Definitely. So, for those people that haven't seen the first episode, and for those that don't know who you are, could you just give us a little rundown? I know it's tedious, but of who you are and what you do, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. Well, my name, as you probably guessed, is Penny Griffiths-Morgan, and I'm a historian, paranormal investigator. What did Mark Wallbank from New Zealand call me recently? A paranormal rock star, a bit of a para-TV celeb, and a smarty pants. That's kind of what he called me. Probably quite a good.
Sounds about right.
It sounds about right, doesn't it? I'm a frequent flyer when it comes to speaking at paranormal conferences and everything else. I'm an author. I've just released a couple of months ago my 6th book. I've had write articles, Haunted Magazine being one of the most common ones. Basically, whatever, if someone wants a talk doing, if someone wants research doing, if someone wants an investigator who's got the history bias, if someone needs someone to do your presentation, that's all my CV, basically.
That sounds good. I love it. So,
I'm also because I'm still very proud of this, I got the Parameet Personality of the Year this year as well.
Whoop whoop.
I still can't believe that one. I got a ghostie.
That's awesome. Is that what they're called? Is that the official title?
That's what I've called. Well, I think they look like a mini Oscar, like a ghost Oscar.
Yeah.
So ghosties. Yeah. That's what I call it. My ghostie. Yeah.
No, that's good. You deserve it, Penny.
Thank you. I was up against like Paul Goddard and Barry John and
nice.
Barry Frankish. So I did not expect to win it, shall we say. I was the only woman in the category. So I still pinch myself that it came home with me.
No,
and my name's actually on it, so it's not that I nicked it from anyone. It's actually there.
Slip it into your bag.
Yeah, Barry, you don't want this, do you? Yeah, nice.
To rub his name off.
Tipex.
Yeah. So we have a few people in the building tonight. Haunted Moments. Oh, C&D.
Long time no see.
Is that the original C&D? Oh my God, I've not heard of you guys for so many years. Oh wow!
If it is, hi! I haven't seen them in ages. We've done quite a few investigations together, me and those ladies.
Awesome. We have Tracy from Australia. Nearly said America. Sorry about that. Tracy's awesome. She shows me lots of cemeteries out there.
Lovely.
Sends me videos. Awesome place. You know, I need to go and have a look at some of them. Portal to the Paranormal. Hi guys.
Hi
Hope you're
guys.
well.
See you in September.
Both all round gems.
Yeah, it's them.
It is
They're
them.
back.
Hey.
Where have you been?
Yeah, exactly.
Where have you been?
Yeah, what's been happening? Get you on the show.
Yeah, definitely. Reintroduced to the world.
Yeah, are you guys back investigating? Let us know in the comments.
Definitely.
So, Penny, you mentioned a couple of months ago you had a new book out. This book, Becoming Peggy.
Yeah.
That's not your name though, is it?
No.
So, was that a mistake? Yeah.
No, and it's also not about the doll either. I don't know why. Well, I do know why, because part of the reason Paul Stevenson did the foreword, he and Andy from Haunted Magazine decided to start calling me Peggy as a nickname because my initials being PG.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And I had two choices. I either embrace it or I fight against it. And there's probably not much point fighting against.
Oh, where's Penny gone?
Can you hear me?
Oh, there you go. I can hear you now. Yeah. You've gone a bit grainy.
Get people off the internet, please. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I don't know what's going on. It all went a bit funny just then. Anyway, rather than fight against them, I thought I'd embrace it. And so Peggy is to me like Sasha Fierce is to Beyonce. It's her stage name. Peggy is my stage name now. And when I was trying to think what to call that book, because it's kind of quasi-autobiographical, I was really sort of struggling on what to call the book. And it just I came up with Becoming Peggy. And Andy and Paul were like, that's brilliant, that's really funny. So that's why it's called Becoming Peggy. So becoming the paranormal me. So it's not a typo. But when I was in the States, because I did Penhurst Paracon in May, the amount of people that were calling me Peggy because they thought that was my name, because it's obviously so close to Penny, and I had to keep saying, actually no, it's Penny. But yeah, that's why it's called Becoming Peggy, because it's kind of the paranormal me. Never been called it before in my life. It was, I'm sure it's Paul Stevenson, but you know, if you ever see them, do remind them that they did put it in as my name once in a magazine article, and it went to print, and they were so apologetic that they put me as Peggy Griffiths-Morgan. I was like, it's but yeah, that's why it's called Becoming Peggy. So it's kind of my story and some of my experiences. There's still history in there, there's still weird paranormal stuff, but it also sort of follows how I've got to where I've got to now, and some of the stuff that I've gone through to get to there. Yeah,
we'll come back to that in a minute if you don't mind. So C&D disappeared, but because of so much ag from various quarters, that's nothing new in the paranormal field, really.
Unfortunately.
Never stopped investigating, just doing it privately. That's fair play. Nice.
Well, it's great to see you guys.
Yeah. Tracy,
thank you.
So happy to get a live 4 a.m. here. Oh wow, thank you so much. You know, fair play to you. You have a wonderful guest. Yeah, Penny's awesome. Or Peggy, I should call her. She's gonna slap me next time she sees me.
Yeah.
So going back to the book, what made you want to write it in the style you have, like a semi autobiography, or what was the angle?
It was kind of requested.
Right.
Because my first book, My Haunted History, a lot of people thought that would be more the autobiographical one, and I sort of thought, well, who's going to want to buy a book that's about me for my first ever book when nobody has a clue who I am? And I felt quite awkward, believe it or not, talking about myself, my like my personal stuff.
Yeah.
And so many people have said to me, we want to know what made you you. What things have influenced you up to the point where we all started to get to know you? And I was thinking about what book to write next. And I just thought, you know what, I'm going to have a go at this and see if it's got any legs with it. And once I started, I thought, yeah, I can make this fit my normal form, i.e. history and the paranormal, but also to put some personal stuff into it as well that a lot of people wouldn't know about me. It's not that I'm embarrassed about it, or it's just never doesn't come up. And I just thought people might find that interesting, that even though I've only been doing like the investigating side for sort of, well, about 15 years now, I've had stuff happen to me all my life. I just never knew that you could look into it. And that was why I say it was pretty much people saying to me they wanted to learn more about me. And I thought, okay, well, you asked. There we go.
Yeah, knock yourself out. Yeah. And if, you know, and I probably did hold back a little bit with some personal stuff, but, you know, but there's a whole chapter in there called Grief, which is about when I lost my sister when I was 22. And when I first wrote it, I sent the chapter off to a friend of mine to read through. And she just came back and she said, you need to go deeper. You're being still holding too much back. So I did put a lot more into it about how I felt, how it influenced me, what's happened to me because of it. So there is quite a lot of quite personal stuff. There's also my typical sarcasm in there, you know. Yeah, I've noticed that.
I can't write without sarcasm.
No, it's good. It's good. Like you're reading normally, and there's a little cheeky one there, and it's like, okay, that's Penny.
I tend to find people say they read it in my voice. They actually hear my voice in their head as they're reading it.
Yeah, that's good.
Which is great. I that's my voice, and I put in the fact that I failed history A level but I still do work as a historian. Because I love history, was not very good at the academic history A level side, and I talk about that in there for anyone who's into history but maybe can't do the essays the way they want them and everything. You can still love history. In fact, I found out recently, a friend of mine, he's doing a history PhD. He failed his history A level, and he's doing a PhD.
Oh wow! Weren't you advised not to do history by your teachers? Whenever Penny's back. Penny! There you go, you're back. Hello.
I think the cables are overheating tonight.
Yeah. So, I don't know if you heard that question. No?
No, I didn't, sorry.
Okay. I just said, I think from reading the book, weren't you advised not to do history? Is that...
yes, correct. Yeah, my history GCSE teacher, who is pretty much the reason I love history. He was amazing. He was brilliant. He actually said to my mum, Penny will hate history A level. She'll love doing a degree because that will be more her, but the A level she will hate. And he was correct, and I failed it. Hated it. But you know, he's one who I'm pretty sure he's looking down on me now and killing himself laughing that I go out as a historian but then again, I did love history. When I think my problem with the A level, it was very this is how you have to write it, this is there's no deviation. And when I'd ask them for help in like what format do you want it in, I just got told to read more newspapers to learn how to use big words, which is I always find ironic, because one of the criticisms some of my friends have is I use too big of words. And it's just like I can't win. But I was my history teacher, who I got on with very well, sort of said, no, she'll hate it. She'll absolutely hate it. And he was right. But I think he's one that would be quite proud of what I'm doing now if he could see it.
Too right. See, when I was at school, I hated history. boring. All I ever learnt about was Tudor, Henry VIII, all that stuff. And then I decided to do geography. But then, obviously, since doing what I do now with the paranormal side, the history is one of the bonuses for me when I go to these locations, the castles, the old manor houses, the abandoned buildings, what was there originally. The history is like, wow, that is such an important part for myself when I'm going to these places. That obviously is obviously a bonus for you as well with doing what you do and investigating.
Oh yeah, I mean, the fact that I get dumped in these locations that normally you either don't get to see, or if you're going, you've got to have all the public with you, and I can just sit in a room that's 500 years old and think. I mean, it doesn't get, it really, for me, it doesn't get much better than that. And I think, I mean, I never did, I was always going to do history at GCSE. It was never going to be geography. And my teacher, Phil Hancock, I think the reason I enjoyed working with him is he never treated me like a child. So if he said this is what was meant by this, for example, and I turned around and said, well, why? Because etc., he would quite happily get into a conversation with me about it. Whereas when I did A-level, if I contested what they were saying, it was like, we're the teacher, you're the student, take it on board. Whereas he would quite happily, after, you know, if the lesson ran into break and I wanted to talk a bit more about, I don't know, the history of medicine we were studying, he would sit with me for 20 minutes talking about it. There was never, but it was never talking down to me. It was always talking with me. And also, I think when you're talking about history, if you talk about it in 1853, such and such an act was passed, but if you can make it relevant to people, so, you know, if I'm talking about workhouses, which is one of my specialities, and people go, oh, they're really bad, they're this, they're that, and I'm like, no, they were the original welfare state. They were the welfare state. They didn't have computers then, so they couldn't check who was getting the money. And when you put it into sort of context for people, they can still say, no, I think they were really bad places, but they're not necessarily reading it in the way that they're seeing it in a different way. And it's like with sorry,
it's a ghost.
It's a ghost, yeah, or an 11-year-old who shouldn't be coming on camera. No, Tom, no, sorry.
The devil. Oh, I love it. Sorry.
That's okay. He's got autism, so he doesn't always understand when he should or shouldn't be. So I'm just trying to stop him doing that again. What was I going to say? Yeah, so it gives you a different perspective on things. I mean, it's like when people talk about like horror films. And I'll turn around to them and I say, I guarantee you can give me the scariest like horror slasher type film, and I can find you an event in history which is worse. And they'll be like, nah, don't be daft. Okay, let's think. Vlad the Impaler shoving spikes up people's backsides. Okay.
Let them slowly drop.
Let them slowly drop. Oh, Spanish Inquisition methods of torture, not just something used in 50 Shades of Grey. You know, and once you start, you know, some of the serial killers they've been in and it's kind of, people don't see that as history. They see that as like interesting. And once you sort of can explain to someone that everything has a history, some of it is dull. Well, probably dull to the mainstream. Some of it, I go into so much minutiae now with things that I'm like, oh, when I find that one line in an act that helps me out. But I think it depends on how you talk about it. And whenever I do a talk, and this hasn't actually happened that anyone's fallen asleep in one yet, which I guess is a good sign over sort of the last 15 years. But if somebody comes out saying, do you know what, I used to think history was boring. It's not, is it? That to me is the biggest compliment. Or someone reading one of my books and saying, you know that bit you wrote about R.A.F. Tibenham? I've actually gone up and read up on it. That to me is what I want to happen, is for people to, if they're interested in something, to learn how to find out more.
I think it's, like you said, it's the way it's presented to you. If you've got a monotone teacher that's boring as anything, the subject will then become boring as well. But if they're enthusiastic, you can see their passion, you get sort of sucked into that.
Yeah.
And it helps, and you like the subject then.
Yeah. I mean, people laugh when I'm doing one of my talks, so I don't stand still. I'm like sort of bouncing around, and there is a reason for that. It's not just because I'm not overly energetic, and it's not because I've had too much Red Bull. It's because if you change people's viewpoint, they have to keep sort of resetting, and it keeps them awake, for want of a better term. I've been presenting for so many years now in various forms, but it is also because I'm interested, and I want people to laugh as well, because laughing, they'll go, she did crack a joke. It's like the fact you mentioned Henry VIII, and I'm like, I can't stand the man. He's the ultimate historical tosser. I mean, he is, but, and I will say that in my talks, and like when I've done the talks on Bosworth Hall, one of the baronets there, one of the Wollstonecrafts, he's not known as Wollstonecraft, he's known as the arsehole, and everyone knows I call him that. Yeah. But they remember. So
you don't forget that bit.
Exactly. So I think if you talk about it, you're quite animated, but genuinely animated, and you genuinely enjoy, and you genuinely. What I do get annoyed about with some historians is they like to gatekeep the information. They're like, well, I actually had to do the research to learn this, so I'm not going to tell you. You can find it out for yourself. Whereas if someone asks me a question, I want to give them as much information as possible, because I want them to be as excited about it as I am. So yeah, I do think it is a subject that if it's taught properly, it's interesting. But unfortunately, one of the reasons I've never become a history teacher, which has been suggested to me on more than one occasion, is I want to talk about what I want to talk about. I don't want to talk about what the syllabus tells me to talk about. And I've sat and listened to some of the history classes, and I'm just like, I would be asleep in that, because I remember when we were looking around secondary schools for the eldest, and was chatting to the history teachers there, when they found out suddenly I got loads of attention, because they're like, oh, she's a historian, and they're like, oh, really? They're like all these male history teachers. The husband stood behind me like this, and there's all these good-looking teachers like, oh, really? What subject are you in? And even they said, yeah, it's dull. You try and put you're talking about the Magna Carta, but it is hard to, when you're dictated what you've got to teach people. But I do think, I do think if you've got an energy about you, it makes a talk or a lecture or whatever. Like I say, my friend who's doing the PhD, he's a brilliant lecturer, and that's the feedback he gets from students, what a brilliant teacher he is. And it is partly because the fact he has gone a bit of a different route to getting there. Unorthodox. And he genuinely loves the subject. Because he's a specialist in I think it's World War II aviation, I think, is one of his specialisms. But so I think it's a shame when people say they think it's boring. I think maybe their experience of it has been boring, but come along to one of my talks and it's not boring.
No, it's not. So what got you into doing the public speaking in the first place? Because it's not something that I've been offered a few of these like parameets and paracon things. I couldn't think of anything worse. I would be shitting myself. I would be nervous. The words wouldn't come out. I'd be sweating. I would be worried about what people are they judging me. So what makes it so easy for you, and what made you want to do it in the first place?
Because I've been doing public speaking for 40 years, Mickey.
Okay, then why is that?
I discovered I was quite good at it when I was at school.
Okay.
I would have been 12, so I'm just over my age. And we had to do a talk in English. It had to be a 5-minute talk on a subject we were interested in. And at that time, we'd gone to an air show at Norwich Airport that weekend. And my dad had said, why don't you do it on World War I aircraft? Because we'd seen a few replicas flying around. And so I got some postcards of some World War I aircraft. And I put this 5-minute talk together on World War I aircraft. And even at that age, I was going to put a joke in, because one of the makes of World War One aircraft was a Fokker, Fokker.
Yeah.
Right? Now, can you imagine loads of 12 and 13-year-olds when this little nerdy girl stands up with a postcard and said, "And this is a Fokker." That was deliberate. And the thing was, the teacher, English teacher, was the head of the school, and he was very, very straight-laced. And everyone's like, "Oh, she's war," and he went, "No, she didn't. It's the name of the aeroplane." And so I was like, so I learned innuendo works. Then, so if anyone had to stand up in front of a class, it was always nominated to be me, because I'm not actually as confident as people think, but Peggy comes out. That's the only way I can put it. And as long as I know what I've got to talk about, I always make sure I know how I'm going to open a talk, how I'm going to close it, what happens in between. Never always sure. It's anyone's guess. And then so I'd always do them. And then when I did my English O level GCSE, you had to do an English oral. And again, everyone's doing all these boring subjects. I did it on women in the rock business, and how they're treated and stuff. And I got I think I got the highest marks in East Anglia for my English oral, because of how so I've got a talent for it. And so it just carried on. And then when I was in my must have been 25, 26, I got a job as a technical trainer in the insurance industry. And so I was standing up in front of anything from 5 people to 500 doing talks. So I've always done it. I do get nervous every time. I have kind of a if people come and try and talk to me just before I'm due to go on, they'll get snapped at, because I'm kind of
getting in the zone.
It's very similar to like musicians and stuff. Before they go on stage, you don't talk, because I'm like running through my opening lines, running through what I'm going to do, running through my slides in my head, and all of that. And I do get nervous, but I've always said the minute I stop getting those butterflies is when I stop doing it, and I'm still getting them. And
that's good.
I enjoy it. I mean, I have no problem speaking in front of people. Even sometimes when I've suddenly been, I did quite a few events for Haunted Happenings, and the amount I've got used to them now, they'll get me to an event and they'll go, "Right, Penny's going to talk about the history of the place," and I'll be like, "Is she?" Now
Where is she then?
Yeah, who? What? So now I do actually make some bullet point notes whenever I do one of their events, because I know damn well they're going to go, "And it's Penny from Haunted History." So I've got so used to it, I can normally ad-lib to a point. But I think it's one of those things. It's not for everyone. Not everyone can do it. My husband can't. At our wedding, I was the one that did the talk to everyone, because naturally I'm happier to do that than he is. But it's something I've been doing since I was a kid. I've always had that ability to switch the presenter on, but I'm still constantly learning different things I can do, different ways to tweak it. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's actually more intimidating talking to, say, 10 people.
I've heard that. Yeah.
No, it is, because you can see the faces. If you can't see the faces, it's a lot less intimidating. But I've done everything. I think the largest
sizes.
I think the largest audience I ever spoke to, I think, was 800 people in an auditorium for my day job. And the only thing I was worried about was falling off the stage, because I walk about so much and I was mic'd up. And a couple of times because the light was blinding me, I got quite close to the edge of the stage and I was like, "Ooh,
whoops!"
Yeah, catch me! I'm stage diving.
Don't do that.
No, not unless I know there's some nice strong people there to catch me. But yeah, it's just something I've always done, and I enjoy it. And it's but everyone has different skills. Everyone has different. And that just happens to be one of my skills, that I can stand up in front of people and talk.
That's good. I like that. Yeah, definitely something. Obviously, I can't do that, so for me, that's amazing. But if we can go back to the book, Becoming Peggy, available now, Amazon, blah blah blah. There we go.
Yes, thank you.
So, like I said to you before we come on the live, I'm only like halfway through the book, but I've made some little bullet points. I just start to talk about. I believe you were talking to. No, I don't know. Can't remember where this bit was. You were talking to. Was it American servicemen?
Yeah, frequently.
Yeah, and. Sorry.
That's really bad, doesn't it? I'll explain that in a minute.
Men and women.
Yeah.
And there was a story about a wonky picture. Was it? I believe above. It was above.
I know the story you're talking about. Okay.
A cellar entrance. Was it a cellar?
Yes, I know what you're talking about. Yes. So.
Phew.
We'll take everyone back in time. So I grew up in a village called Ketteringham. I grew up in a village called Ketteringham in Norfolk. East Anglia during World War II was known as Little America because it was absolutely full of American air bases. The Ketteringham, there's a big hall that actually from I can't remember what date in the 60s, from 1960 something until about 1990 something, it was actually Lotus Formula One headquarters.
Okay.
So most people have heard of Lotus Formula One. And in fact, Lotus cars, the sports cars, was just up the road at what was RAF Hethel. Anyway, there was, now, and I can't remember the exact year this was, it's probably in the book, but there would have been loads of military based in that village during World War II because Ketteringham was the headquarters for the 2nd Air Division, and the 2nd Air Division was part of the 8th Bombardment Group, who had various airfields under their command. So you had, I've written about RAF Tibenham in previous books. I've mentioned RAF Hethel. You've got RAF Old Buckingham. Yeah. I can't remember. They're listed in the book, the different airfields that they had under them.
Yeah. This is the 25th of May, 1987. This happened.
Thank you. Thank you for checking that.
Right.
So I would have been 13. Yeah. And so you've got all these awesome World War II former veterans, American veterans, have all come back for this, and they would have gone into Norwich and had a meal, and then some of them came back, and normally the hall was very locked down because it was very top secret what Lotus were doing in there. But they opened it up for the anniversary, and I was chatting to, I mean, you know, Americans love an English accent. Bless them. Especially they love 2 young girls, because I would have been 13 and my sister would have been 10, who are asking them questions about the war, and they would be chatting away to us. They were all wandering about in the village. They still had their flying jackets on. It really was so cool. And I was chatting to one of them, and I just happened to say, oh, was it haunted? And he told me about that none of them like going down into the cellars because, and there was this picture that they kept straightening, and as soon as they'd come back up, it was wonky again, and it wasn't the stairs moving it. They tried all of that, but something didn't want this picture straight. It kept putting it. A Norfolk phrase is on the her, means like wonky. And he said nobody liked going down into the cellars because they felt it. There was bad energies down there. But it's a weird one because I knew that the hall had been used as like the 2nd Air Division HQ. What I also subsequently discovered is that day I was wandering around there with my sister, the actor Jimmy Stewart was there. Now I didn't know that at the time. I only found
yes, I remember.
35 years later, but he was actually there for that visit, and it's just like, whoa! Anyone who didn't know, Jimmy Stewart was actually a pilot. He flew Liberators in World War II, and he was actually based for the first part of his flying career at RAF Tibenham, which I've written about quite extensively in A Haunted Experiment. And then he got moved to RAF Old Buckingham, and then he went to Ketteringham. He was one of the sort of bigwigs at Ketteringham Hall. So I was a bit like, oh damn it, if I'd known that then. But then again, I wouldn't have known who he was at 13. So
no.
It's one of those things. But I did find out that the woods that are around it, whenever I used to walk in them with my dog as a kid, I used to ride my horse in them, I always felt I was being watched.
Yeah.
And I always thought it was because of security from Lotus, because they were very, very hot on security, you can imagine. It was only relatively recently, so probably about 8-9 years ago, that my dad was like, well, you know, the woods was full of like Nissen huts and people and everything else. And I was like, that makes sense. And then I don't know if you're going to ask me about this or if you've read it yet, but I was walking the dog, my old dog, not the one I've got at the moment, through the woods, and I had Will, my eldest son, not the one you saw pop up behind me, the older one. He was training to be an investigator, and he was with me. He was about 7 or 8. And walking along, he's in front of me, and I could feel someone breathing on the back of my neck. You know what I mean by that? You can feel the breath on the, and I thought, oh, there's someone behind me. But I knew there was no one there because peripheral vision I could see, but I could feel breath on my neck. And we'd been running and playing with an ovilus, and this name had kept coming through, and the month of June had kept coming through. And I didn't want to worry Will because he was like, Mum, who's following you? Who's following you? There's someone there. And I was like, nah, there isn't. Don't worry about it. We're fine. You're imagining it. And it's only recently, he said, you know, time in the woods, I thought someone was following you. I said, someone was following me. Well, I could feel the breeze. I bloody knew it. You lied to me. I said, well, you would have freaked out if I told you, yes, I think there's a ghost behind me. But it's fascinating because none of it is there anymore. Nearly everything. I mean, I found one of the access roads through the woods one time when I was exploring, and that's when my dad sort of said, you know, there was loads of buildings there, because I was all excited about finding this road. So it's, but yeah, that would have been chatting to the serviceman. I wish I knew I could go back sort of 40 years and talk to them again and really sort of find information, access loads of things I'd want to know now.
Oh yeah, that'd be amazing, wouldn't it?
But I just remember this day, there was just so many of them all wandering about the village, pointing out where things had been when they were there in the 40s, and sort of seeing like all the liberators and fortresses coming over, and it really was an experience. But it was back in the day when you could just wander about as a kid and you were safe.
It's fine, yeah,
and sort of getting to chat to all these sort of older gentlemen who must have been in their 60s back then, and then, I mean, the one telling me about the cellar, and nobody liked going down into the cellar to get stuff because they were always spooked down there, and they said this blasted picture that you could never keep, it was always turned whenever they went past it. But knowing the history of the hall doesn't surprise me.
No, that's awesome. So yeah, obviously earlier on you mentioned the passing of your sister. Yeah, obviously it's a sensitive subject. I'd like to talk about a couple of things that were happening in the house at the time, if you don't mind. Obviously they're in your book, so it should be okay.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
You mentioned that there was, somebody was, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody was in the chair in the corner. Somebody was playing. Was it you playing?
Are you talking about when the cat was?
When the cat. Yeah.
So my living room had a 3-seater sofa and an armchair.
Yeah.
And whenever my sister used to come and visit, she would always sit in the armchair, and I'd be on the sofa. She'd always sit on the armchair. And this would have been shortly after she died. My then boyfriend and I sat on the sofa watching the television, and we saw the cat go up to the armchair. And I can't remember the order she did this in, but she did the figure of 8 thing around the legs that cats do. And then she jumped up on the arm and flexed and purred like someone was stroking
her back.
And we sat and watched this. And as he said, your sister was the only one who ever used to sit in that chair. And it was like the cat knew, or she was sitting there. I don't know, but it was very weird to watch, because it was genuinely like, I've never seen a cat do a figure of 8 when there's been no legs there.
No, because it has to go in between. It touches as it slides round.
Exactly, and that's exactly what she was doing. It's though someone was sat there in the chair and she was making a fuss at them. I say, my then boyfriend and I sat and watched it, happen.
That say for me. Sorry, for me that. How do you look at that? Do you look at that in it's just the cat doing? There's nothing there. Or see if I was watching that and I knew, like you knew about your sister playing with a cat, only your sister sits there. For me, that'd be like, oh my god, she's there. She is there now.
Oh, it was
for me anyway.
Exactly, that's exactly how I felt. He freaked out. He freaked out about it. He couldn't cope with it. But I was just like, I almost was like, hi Sue. You know, it was kind of. It so many weird things happened to me. The sort of 6 months to 12 months after she passed away.
Yeah.
That I'm pretty sure she was coming back to check on us, like just to make sure.
You're okay.
I mean, there was the instance. I think it was 2 days, 48 hours after she died, possibly not even that. And my 2 cats. I was lying on the sofa. I think I was basically either asleep or crying for about 24 hours, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And I'm lying on the sofa, and I felt someone stroking my head. I just cried myself to sleep. I felt someone stroking my head, and I looked up to think it was one of the cats had sort of jumped on me or something. The cats are both sat on the sort of high back of the sofa just watching me, but somebody had stroked my head. There was another instance where, because I went back to work quite quickly because I wanted to be around people, but I didn't want to be, and they put me in a side room so I could just do my own thing, but I was with people. And I remember the boyfriend phoning me up saying, "Get home now, your bloody sister's here." What are you on about? And he'd gone to sleep, and he was lying on the bed, and he felt someone hugging him, and he looked over, and there was an indentation of a body behind him. Now, anyone worrying that my sister was not having an affair with my then boyfriend, she knew he was upset because he was quite close to her. But and he was like, "Your bloody sister's been here," and you know, things like that. It never scared me because I didn't find it. It was more
coming from love.
Yeah, reassuring.
Yeah.
That she was still. And gradually the visits sort of got less and less and less over the years. And she does still come back every so often. I can smell her. I can smell her perfume sometimes. But, and she's visited both my kids when they were little. So, but yeah, that was a, the cat thing sitting there. You know, if I wish we'd had cameras in those, you know, we're talking 90, when were we talking? 96? Let me think, 22, 95, 96.
Yeah.
Obviously, you didn't have camera phones. You know, if you had a big chunky video camera, so I couldn't even video it to prove it. But I just remember sitting there thinking, that's odd. But nobody else used to sit in that chair. She was the only one that would sit in the chair. And it was an interest. It sort of, it was one of those. I found it reassuring rather than frightening. But I've thought about it over and over, but I've never seen a cat do that unless there was something for it to be weaving around. Yeah,
because it wouldn't know where to turn.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was interesting experiences.
No, I like that. I would definitely take comfort from that.
Oh, I did. I do. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I would like it to be like if, like, when we pass over, you know, family come back to visit, make sure we're okay. In times of need, they come back because they know, you know, you need that little bit of help, reassurance, or whatever. Yeah,
which I think she does. She does. She sort of say every so often. I say I can smell her, I can feel her. But it's not. It doesn't. It's never upset me when it's happened because it was a long time ago she passed away.
Yeah.
But I try and use my experiences if someone else is going through it, because nothing phases me in that sort of thing. If someone wants to talk about their loss, their grief, I'm always happy to listen, because I think some people, you know, it's like when someone says, "Oh, I'm still crying and it's been 6 months," and it's like, there is no time limit.
No,
there is no time limit. I promise you will stop crying as much, but I can't tell you when. I still cry now. Some things will trigger me now. Nearly 30 years on, I'll start. You know, when I had my youngest, I had cried about it because I was like, I wish she was here to meet her nephews. You know, and that's normal. I think we were very close. If I didn't get upset, it wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be normal, would it?
No, you'd think there's something wrong with me.
Exactly. But yeah, so that was an interesting thing to watch happen. Yeah.
And pretty cool, to be fair. I'd love to have seen that myself.
Yeah. I mean, of all the experience, that was some very cool stuff. I think the weirdest thing, there's two things that I stick in my mind that I mentioned both of them in the book that were weird. There was what happened with my car key at my history teacher's funeral. I don't know if you've got to that bit.
I don't think so.
No. So my history teacher died in his 40s, and obviously I was very upset because I still used to see him outside of school. Because he lived quite close to my parents, so if I ever went to visit my parents, I'd normally see him, and he'd always stop and wave, "How are you? What are you doing?" and all this. He dropped down dead of a heart attack, I think it was, on a rugby field. And I went to his memorial service because it was a private funeral for the family, but they had a big memorial service. I would have been 21, I think. I drove there because I lived on the other side of Norwich by this point, and I had, you know how thick a car key is, how thick a car key is. I had it in the top of my handbag. It was a hot day.
Oh yes, I have read this bit. Yes.
I had it in the top of my handbag.
Yeah.
My handbag was by my feet in the church the entire time. I'd driven the car there, so the key was fine at that point. There was no pipe work or anything. It was a summer day, so even if there had been, the pipes wouldn't have been on. There was no one kneeling on my bag. It was in my sight the entire time. When I took my key, and it was in the top of my bag, when I took my key out to drive home, the key had been twisted 180 degrees and bent.
It's weird.
Thing was, back in those days, didn't have mobile phones, so I had to walk to the nearest phone box. The only person at my parents' house, which was just up the road from the church, was my little sister. Unfortunately, could drive at this point. We didn't have a spare door car key because the boyfriend had managed to break it. I don't know how. He'd used it to try and jimmy something out and snapped it. So I only had one car key. And so she drove over to where I was and drove me into the centre of Norwich as fast as possible to try and get me to a locksmith so I could try and get a new key cut so I could drive home.
Yeah.
The actual locksmith was like, "How did you do this? I can't even straighten it using my tools." Like, you know, the thing, they clamp
it on, don't they?
Yeah, like the clamp that sits on the...
Yeah.
That's it. He couldn't even, he struggled. He had to snap it and then straighten it and try and cut it from those two pieces. He's like, "How did you do this?" I don't know. It just happened. My dad, who's a mechanical engineer, degree in mechanical engineering, he was like, "Oh, there's no such thing as paranormal." He took a load of old car keys and tried to replicate it. Couldn't. Anywhere near it. Still don't know how it happened.
Oh, wow.
I don't know whether it was either Phil Hancock playing a joke on me, thinking it would be funny.
Yeah.
A lot of these stories are in the new book, Tracy, that I'm talking about. Just that one. He either thought it would be funny, or he was trying to protect me from driving home, that if I had driven home after the funeral, something bad might have happened.
Yeah.
Or my only other thing is, I lost my sister about a year later. We had such a laugh, her trying to drive me as fast as possible into Norwich to get there before the shop shut. I don't think her and I had laughed that much ever. So was he knew that something was going to happen to her and he wanted me to have a fun memory?
Yeah.
I don't know. But that was a weird one. I've never been able to answer how that happened. And yeah, even the key cutter said, "I don't know how you did this because I can't straighten it with tools. You needed to heat it to twist it."
Well, that's definitely paranormal in my eyes then, like you say.
It does seem the kind of thing that Phil Hancock would have done to tease me, to be honest. Like, ha ha ha, see how she copes with this. But I actually do wonder if it was either that I could have had an accident if I'd left,
yeah, probably.
he could almost see into the future, that what was going to happen, because he would taught my sister as well. He
Right.
knew what was going to happen, and wanted us to have a good memory. I don't know, but that's one that always sticks in my mind as being, I can't explain it. I can't explain it. And say, when your mechanical engineer degree, Brunel degree of a father, can't fathom it out either, kind of validates that it's paranormal. It may not have been a ghost, but it's not normal. It's paranormal.
No. Yeah. Whatever happened, it wasn't you kneeling on it.
No, there's no way it would have. I mean, bent it maybe if I knelt on it, but twist it and bend it.
No, their keys are quite thick, aren't they, for
Exactly.
cars?
Yeah.
Well, that's a crazy story. So, do you have? If you could tell me one thing from this book, one chapter that you enjoyed the most, or one story that, if you could put on a poster or an advert for your book. I know I'm putting you on the spot here. I do apologise. What would it be? Or you may have mentioned it already. That would be fine if that's the case. Because obviously you've got lots of stories as you were on your paranormal journey.
Oh, I don't know. I really don't, because they all mean something. Whether you're talking about, me at 6 years old going into Stamford Hall and not liking it, and then finding out 40 years later there was a horrific murder committed there. Whether you're talking about the fact that when I had my eldest son in Chelmsford Hospital, which was the former workhouse, I saw a shadow coming out of the lift, and I also had my window that kept shutting itself with no one touching it. Whether you're talking about the key incident, whether you're talking about what happened, we haven't even talked about what happened to the mirror that my sister bought me just before she died.
Oh, that's on my list.
Oh, that is probably the weirdest one, when that launched itself across the room.
Yeah.
So I don't know, mirror being a gateway to the soul. I don't know, something like that. I mean, we haven't mentioned, I don't think you'll have got to this one, my French holiday, with the weird stuff that happened to me in that gîte.
No, not yet. I'm excited to read the rest of this book now.
It's action a minute, I'll tell you. It's action a minute.
It sounds it.
There is 50 years worth of stuff in there, but I managed to condense it down into 35,000 words. But yeah, the mirror. That was.
So odd. What happened with the mirror?
Okay, so my sister had a tendency to be more like a man, shall we say, at Christmas, buying all her Christmas presents like 3 days before Christmas. That's normally what she would do.
Yeah.
But for some reason, the year she died on the 6th of December, she'd bought my Christmas present early, and it was a mirror that I'd wanted, which obviously, is quite a weird sort of, has meanings to it and everything else, doesn't it? Yeah. This was the last ever present she gave me. Obviously, I opened it at Christmas after she'd died, and I treasured it. Yeah. I treasured it, as you can imagine. I'd moved when I'd broken up with the boyfriend who I'd been with when she passed away. I lived in a house in the centre of Norwich for about 6 months. It was one of those like 19th century, quite solid terrace, Victorian terraces.
Yeah.
I was off work for the day. I was ill, and so you had like the front room, a middle room, and then a kitchen. The mirror was up on the wall in the middle room on an internal wall. So, and it was properly fastened to the wall, not like a little nail. It was on a proper heavy duty screw. Anyway, I was sort of lying there, sort of half drifting, because I'd had an allergic reaction to something, so I was a bit like woozy, and I heard this almighty crash. I went running upstairs to the bedrooms and checked the front bedroom that my friend at the time had, because there was kids playing outside, and I was worried someone had kicked a football through a window. That's what it sounded like. Yeah, nothing's there. Very odd. And I come back downstairs, and I went into the middle room, and the mirror has come off the wall. I know I didn't do this with it, and it's on the other side of the room, propped up against the sofa that was there on the floor. And I'm like, did I move that when I was a bit woozy? Was that? And I'm checking my watch because I knew I'd checked. Cause I had a rash all over my face from this, and I knew I'd checked it in that mirror before I'd gone to lie down, and I'd noted the time, and there was less than 10 minutes had elapsed between the two, and I could account for those 10 minutes because I was awake. But the weirdest thing was this mirror was hot to touch. It was hot.
Wow.
Not a scratch on it. And it's been launched across the room. So I was a bit like, okay, I don't know what's going on here. Anyway, when I left there, it all got packed away. And it wasn't until I moved into my first house about 2 years later, and I put the mirror up in the bathroom. This blasted thing kept being thrown off the wall. The amount of times I'd recover it from being on the floor. And this is an internal wall in a house, so there's no vibrations or anything like that. And it wasn't that the screw fell out of the wall. It wasn't that the nail or screw or whatever it was fastened to was still in the wall. The mirror would launch itself off this wall. And then one time, whoever's been launching it, if it was my sister, I don't know, or something else that was in it, I don't know. It launched it, and I had a chair in there because I'd been decorating, and it hit the chair and smashed. But the amount of times this kamikaze mirror would be off the wall, in the bath, or propped up against the wall or something, I lost count. Even when I had a new boyfriend move in, he called it the kamikaze mirror because the amount of times he'd go in there and the mirror would be off the wall. But for some reason it never got broken until the time it fell and hit this wooden chair, and then it smashed. It was weird. Maybe
it was your sister saying, "Don't forget me."
I don't know. Probably.
Hello.
I don't know. I did when it smashed. I was like, I do remember saying to you, "You've done it now, haven't you? You've broken it." But this mirror it was weird. But it was the fact that I did actually get quite upset when it got broken because it was one of the last things I had of her that was material.
Yeah.
This mirror it used to launch itself off walls.
That's crazy.
But yeah, it got nicknamed the kamikaze mirror because of how often it did it.
No, that's again, you can attach the story and the affection you had for your sister to that. I would anyway, personally, taking it as a sign from her, which obviously you hold very dear to you, and I would. That's the way I would look at it.
Oh, I've always thought it was her doing it, but I like to caveat it. I don't know for sure, but it doesn't make sense to me. It wasn't falling off the wall; it would be launched off the wall. It was flying off the wall. And if this was a like an outside wall that had lorries going past or some kind of vibration, nothing like that. Nothing like that. So yeah, it was. And that time when it first did it, and it was hot to touch. It was like, and I know there were, again, no heating on. It was summer, so it's not like it had been up against a radiator or a hot pipe or anything. But it was hot. When I remember, I went to pick it up, and I was like, ah! It was hot.
Wow.
But yeah,
it's very strange.
It's just one of those things that's how I became Peggy.
Yeah. One of the many parts.
Yeah.
So, I've got a question for you. Of all the historical cases you've studied, you've learned, you've looked into, is there any that you'd like to have investigated or been at there at the time when these things happened? Sorry.
I've only got to pick one.
Well, you can have as many as you want, I suppose, but there's a couple then.
I would love to see if the Victorian workhouse was as bad as people think it was.
Okay.
I would love to have experienced it, but from both sides, from a member of staff point of view and an inmate, and see it from both. Because I always argue that for a lot of people without the workhouse, they would have been dead. So, and it's a myth that you could only leave the workhouse in a box. You could elect to leave. So I'd like to see it from all different angles.
Yeah.
I would love to have been around someone like Guy Gibson when they were putting the Dam Busters raids together, and a fly on the wall there, and possibly even secreting myself on one of the aeroplanes to go up in a Lancaster. That would be, yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be good?
Oh, I love it. I love
Well,
it.
you know me, I love aeroplanes. And Lancasters, Guy Gibson is like one of my heroes. Lancasters are like one of my favourite aircraft. So to hear their conversations and what they
Together, perfect.
Seventh heaven. I mean, those are the two that really spring to mind. But when I'm studying the history, I do try and go back to that time, because one of the things I notice the most is people apply modern day values to historical events, and you can't do that. I think you have to. I mean, some things are just plain wrong. Like Hitler was plain wrong. You can't even say, oh well, you know, nobody really liked Jews or whatever. They all wanted them dead. You can't really say that, can you? He was a psycho. You know. That's my technical term for him. But when you look at things like the workhouse, you look at things like conscription into the armed forces, when you look at the fact how women were treated, it wasn't that anyone was particularly cruel. It was, that's what was expected.
Just how it was.
I know actually one other person I'd like to see, if she is Bathory, Countess Bathory. I'd love to know if she really was a serial killer, or if history has painted her as one because she was a powerful woman.
Okay.
I'd love to go back in time. Whether I'd want to be 16th century and having to deal with it, I'm not sure. I think I'd like to be sort of more of a invisible fly on the wall and
maybe as a ghost.
Yeah, and then come back to the present time.
Yeah, just to pop back, you know, have a look.
Yeah.
And
then I'd love to know if she really was what history has said she was, 'cause I don't think she was, and I'd love to know for sure. But yeah, I do try and almost step back in time when I'm studying it. I do try and almost step back in time to try and think what they might have been thinking, like what would their life have been like, you know, socially, what would they have been experiencing. And but yeah, those would probably be my the workhouse one and Guy Gibson, just to see what it was like organising a mission. And the guy was only in his mid-20s. I want to know what that responsibility would have been like for him, like having that responsibility for all those men. Those were the ones that, they would spring to mind, unresearched, because I didn't know you were going to ask that. So those would be the ones that I would like to see a workhouse from different perspectives, like be there as an inmate, be there as a member of staff, and just observe. But yeah, I'd love to have gone somewhere like Scampton and seen what it really was like for someone like him, and what was it like on those aircrafts. Was it noisy and smelly and everything else? Probably. But was you know, what was it like to fly in one of those? That would be
definitely I'd like to. That would be very interesting. You could come back and write another book about it.
I probably would.
Exactly. You'd have so much detail as well.
Yeah, I would. And people are like, how does she know that?
Yeah. I was there. I was floating.
I've invented a time travelling machine. Yes.
Yeah. So earlier on,
if I wrote one about Guy Gibson, Richard Estep came up with a brilliant title for it.
Right. Well,
Penny for the Guy.
Raise a glass to that.
Yeah, he told me I can have that if I ever get round to writing one about Guy Gibson. I'm allowed that one. So yeah, penny for the guy. That's
awesome. Yeah, don't forget that.
Yeah,
I'm sure you'll get round to it.
I hope so. There's not actually that much written. There's much written about Guy Gibson as you'd think.
No.
So, but I'd want to do it with a paranormal slant, and unfortunately, Scampton don't allow investigations, so it would be quite difficult.
Maybe one day.
Hopefully. I've asked them every year for about the last 10 years, and I keep getting told no. So I even got James Holland to ask for me, because he's obviously quite big in that area, and they said no to him. So if he can't get us in there, but,
you've got no hope.
No, not at the moment.
I'm sure it'll one day, maybe.
Hopefully. So
earlier on, you mentioned the Penhurst Paracon that you went to this year. So can you tell us a little bit about that? I think from what I understand, and I may be wrong, from what I saw online, I think you were at the one where all the TV people were at. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
Right. Let's go. Let's open this.
I was not one of those TV people. I just want to stress that. The Penhurst Paracon is very different to a lot of the Paracons we have in the UK.
Right.
I've found a lot of the Paracons we have in the UK, like the ones like people like Neil Packer do, the talks that you're going to be getting are from, not necessarily from TV stars, for want of a better term. The Penhurst Paracon is very similar to what I'd see as like Comic Cons, where you've got all these famous people there and people can go and meet them, get their autograph, whatever, and then so they'll get up and do a bit of a sort of like a Q&A, a panel type talk, and then some of them hang around in the evening so you can investigate with them as well. I was there as a kind of a vendor and a special guest, for want of a better term, because I was.
You were the British person.
I was the British contingent. I think I was the only British person there. It was, it was surreal. What I will say is the hospitality and kindness of everyone I met was off the charts.
That's good.
The organisers, Bob Christopher and Gina Bengston, I was lucky enough that Bob invited me, because I'd met him the year before when I was out there with Rachel and Wes Coleman, and he'd invited me back and said, "Oh, come along." And then I was like, "Well, can I have a stall, please? Because I'll bring some of my books and try and like infiltrate like a virus the Americans."
Yeah, awesome.
And I did actually know a few people who were exhibiting as well from when I'd been there, so I was able to, and I made new friends as well. A big shout out to my friend Wendy. I don't think she's watching, and her other half are. They were in the table next to me, and they looked after me so well when they realised I was on my own. I'd be trying to sort of work out the money, because it's all the same colour. It's really hard, and you're looking for the number on it. And suddenly I'd need a $10 change or something, and all of a sudden I'd get 2 10s put over my shoulder and a 20 taken out of my wallet, because they were watching. They were so wonderful. And then on the other side, had a lovely family on the other side of me as well, and all the staff at the bed. Honestly, I couldn't. But it's huge. It's huge. I think over 2 days they had something in the region of 9,000 people coming in.
Wow.
It's really hard to picture, and it's huge.
Yeah.
And so people like queue up to meet the celebs. So Josh Gates was like one of the headline celebs. I didn't get to meet them because I was working on my stall, and I also thought, got all these people who paid for tickets to meet these people. I'm not going to. I did butt in on a couple to say hello. I butted in to say hello to Patti Negri because I knew her, and I also butted in to say hello to Katrina Weidman because I knew her as well. But all the others. No. So you had Nick Groff, you had his other half, Tessa, you had the Ghost Brothers there, you had Adam and Amy from Kindred Spirits. They were in the same room as me.
Yeah, Ghost Hunters were there, weren't they, as well? Jason Hawes.
Yep, they were.
Project Fear.
Project Fear were there as well. Yeah. There was loads. But Kindred Spirits were in the room that I was in one of the buildings, and it sounds like it's easy doing what they have to do, but it looked exhausting. They wrote every 3 or 4 minutes somebody new who, and when I watched them doing it, I watched like Katrina doing it as well. It's making that person feel like they're the most important person ever for those 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And they're doing this for 7-8 hours. You can imagine. I was just watching it thinking, that is hard work. It's not as easy as it looks.
No.
And it was hot as well. It was really hot on the Saturday. I mean, I got to choose where I wanted my table, and I put myself right in front of one of the windows. I could have charged people to come and stand in front of my window. Do you know what I mean? Because it was the only breeze coming into our room. But it was an amazing experience, and Penhurst Asylum, I actually don't find it scary. I find it quite a nice place in a weird way. And on the Friday setting up, I did go walkabout because my vendor pass meant I could all access everywhere.
So how many days was the con for?
Well, it's on the Saturday and Sunday is the main Paracon, but people can come in on the Friday night, and they could come in for what they call the RAP dinner. So I can't remember who they got to meet at that. I think it was Ghost Brothers and the Groffs, I think. And then they did an investigation on the Friday night, an investigation on the Saturday night, and then an investigation on the Sunday night. I didn't stay for the investigations. I had been invited to, but I was absolutely shattered. I only got in on the Thursday. I didn't sleep properly.
Jet lag.
I've never driven in America before, so I'm driving a completely alien car on the wrong side of the road, on roads I don't know, and I'm tired. I was on my own, and so I was like, no, I think I'm because I was there on the Friday. I got there at it was before 3 to set up, and then on the Saturday we was asked to be there for about 6:30 in the morning because they wanted us to buy our tables by 8:30 so they could open at 9 for the VIP guests. So and I didn't finish until about 5:30 on the Saturday. So it's a long day, and I just wanted to crash. So, and not literally. So I didn't get to do any investigations this time round. But
so how were you perceived by the Americans? Was there a lot of interest in your books and your expertise from the British side?
By some, it was there was more interest in my accent than anything at times.
Say something.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you say this?
Can you repeat this for me? Oh, I love your accent. What, me? Oh, me? Oh, I love it. I think it was odd. The first day, I didn't sell many at all, and I was kind of quite worried because I'm thinking, I brought these books out here, nobody's buying them. What the hell? But then I found out on the second day, there's an awful lot of people that come to both days, and what they would tend to do is on the Saturday they'll queue up to meet the celebs. Then on the Sunday, we had like over 250 vendors there selling various things.
Oh wow!
They would come round and do their buying.
Yeah.
So I sold twice as many on the Sunday as I did on the Saturday. And the Sunday, a lot of people came back, who'd spoken to me on the Saturday, and came back on the Sunday to buy. There was one lovely woman whose name I can't remember, but she'd spoken to me quite a lot on the Saturday, and she said, I'll be back tomorrow. And I was like, okay, yeah, cool, yeah. And on the Sunday, she stood there almost as when we opened, and I was, oh, hi, you come back. And she goes, yeah, I want to buy the book. And I went, oh, it's brilliant. Which one do you want? All 5.
Result.
Like, really? And she went, yeah. And I was like, do you want them signed? And she went, oh God, can you please? And I remember Wendy saying to me when she went, she was holding them like they were precious.
Yeah.
And she said, I think somebody Googled you last night. And that happened a few times, that people, the way they treated me the second day was very different. So, because, unless I did have one person recognise me from Help, they were like, I recognise your voice. Have you been on telly? And I said, yeah, I've done a few episodes of Help. My House is Haunted, Colchester, Jake Quicken. And I was like, yeah, that was one of mine, yeah. So I think the thing was, a lot of people didn't realise they were my books. I think they thought I was just selling them for somebody else.
Oh, okay.
So if I got the opportunity to go back again, I would probably have more banners and things that said author, writer of, so people knew that they were all me. As
seen on.
Yeah, blow my trumpet and all that.
Yeah, Americans love all that. They'd have been lapping that up.
Oh, I got quite good at the sales process. And it was, I'm British. It was so uncomfortable promoting myself to people. But it worked, but the problem was when I came back and then 3 days later I did Parameet. I was doing it and I could feel people going, I'm so sorry I've been in America. I'm so sorry I'll be British again in a week. But honestly, the hospitality out there, the kindness, the friends I've made as a result, the friendships I've reinforced even further as a result. It was an amazing experience, and I do have to thank Bob and Gina for giving me the chance to do it. It's
awesome. I'm jealous.
Yeah. It's something that I think if you can afford to do it, go out there and experience it, because we don't have anything of that size here, and also being in those premises basically for 3 days, I did feel quite at home in a way. I did feel quite at home there. I think
Yeah.
I think the place likes me. So it's and like I say, I know Bob was laughing because I was saying I was chatting to so and so, and I was chatting. He said, "You know more people than I do," and I said, "It's because I'm on my own. I chat to people so that it sounds weird, but it means that I know I can go up to someone and say, excuse me, if I've got I need some help with something." And like I say, that the hospitality and kindness and friendliness was. I have met some people who are absolutely fascinating, who I will keep in touch with, which is, it's a win-win, isn't it?
Yeah,
amazing experience, and made some new friends.
Well, that's all you want, really. And the fact that you're at that location where all these famous, let's not beat around the bush. We all used to watch or still watch the American ghost hunting shows, and they're all over there. So, they were basically all there apart from Ghost Adventures.
Yes.
That was basically all of them. So.
Yeah, I was just. It was so busy though that I mean, there was a few people who, I'll introduce you to the Ghost Brothers, I'll introduce you to Ghost Hunters, but it was so busy, and I wasn't stopping either because there was a constant flow of people. Yeah. And at the end of the day, I wasn't just there to meet people. I was there to work. To work. One of a better term, also to promote myself, network, whatever the term is. But it's, if you saw the queues of people. I mean, I must admit, when I went to say goodbye to Katrina on the Sunday and she halted her line so that she could speak to me, I did feel quite powerful. I did. And I'm apologising. I'm saying, I'm so sorry, I'll only be a minute. And she's like, no, this is my good friend from the UK. I need to say goodbye to her. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. It did feel quite, but it's quite surreal to see this. The size of the event, and then when you sort of talk to Bob and Gina where the events come from, I think they did it first year they ever did it, they had about 250 people turn up, and this year they had nearly 9,000. I think it is possibly the biggest Paracon in the US, and
it must be with the people that were there. It's got to be,
Well, Josh doesn't do this kind of thing normally. They were quite amazed they got him. And I heard nothing but positive things about him. Everyone was saying how lovely, how genuine he was. He wasn't pushing people through the line. He was taking as much time as people wanted. He would, if someone wanted to like FaceTime their kids at home, he was quite happy to do that.
Nice. Yeah, that's good.
He came across from all. I didn't meet him, because his queue on the Saturday, I think to begin with, it was 3 hours long. It was like Disney World.
Wow.
But everything I heard from him, people who were then coming through saying they'd met him, were like, oh, what's he like? And oh my God, he's so nice. And staff who were working with him said what a lovely bloke he was, which is always nice to hear when you hear from everyone that someone who is very, very well known is still friendly and appreciative of who've put him there in a way.
Exactly. So, no, that's nice to hear that people are genuine from what we sort of figure out from watching on the TV screens, etc.
But no, it's an experience. It was, and it was just so lovely to get to spend time with people, make new friends, see if you like how the Americans do it, and also I drove a car for 4 days and on the wrong side of the road on my own. And I didn't kill anyone, so
where's the positive?
Yeah.
So that's awesome, Penny. So to finish, will there be any more books?
I don't know. Do you think so? Do you think I should write some more?
I think so. Yeah, because then I can get one, read it very slowly.
So the first book, My Haunted History, is undergoing a bit of a rewrite. There's going to be a new chapter being added to it.
Right.
Working on that one. I've also started planning out book number 7. So yes, is the answer. I'm always coming up with an idea, and I actually have a list of ideas for books.
Yeah.
And so I tend to sort of, I almost like fate direct me which one I should write next. And the one I'm writing at the moment, it's going to be about two forts. And one's an American fort and one's a UK one, because one of the questions I did get asked a lot when I was in the States and the time before is, how do hauntings in the US compare to the UK? Now, I've only investigated a few locations in the US, but I thought if I could take a location, a similar, like a fort and a fort, and see if there's any similarities, and talk about the history of the two places. So that's the next one that I've just started mapping it out. So it's a while away, because it's quite a lot of research needs to be done, like historical research for the two places. Yes, so there are more coming.
That's awesome.
I'm not stopping yet.
Don't stop. So have you got any events coming up, any locations that you will be attending to investigate at all?
I'll be doing, I don't know if Portals are still in the chat room, but I'm doing Kelvin and Hatch with them in September. Right. I'm not doing much this month or August. August I'm away in your school holidays and all of that kind of thing. I say you never know when I'm going to pop up. I've not actually got many Paracons booked for the rest of the year. That was deliberate, because I did so many last year. I kind of burnt myself out a wee bit, and I wanted to go back to research, because I want to write a new book. I want to get back to the research and stuff. So, thank you. That's always like, thank you.
Really
did you pay her to say that, Mickey?
No, I didn't.
No?
I'm poor.
Oh, okay.
Oh wow, yeah.
Thank you so much.
That's awesome.
Well, I do have a podcast, obviously, called Haunted Histories, which people can. I really try and release it once a month on that. But no, this year, all I would say is keep an eye on my Haunted Histories Facebook page. If something gets sort of booked in, because I've not got much booked in, but say that's deliberate because I want to spend time. It's very difficult if I'm out doing events all the time, doing research for a book, and all of that kind of thing. So I did decide this year I'd possibly do more research work than events, but I'm already getting booked for events now for 2026. So I'll be traveling a lot next year.
So you're not at Shepton Mallet on the 19th this month then? Okay, I won't see you there then.
No, sorry.
Sorry. That's all right.
Well, we've got to sort something out to put on the internet at some point anyway, haven't we?
I'll find you one day, Penny, don't worry.
If you send me anything that's reasonably not too far away, I will be there with McKay too, and we can have some fun and film it. But deal?
That's a shake on it. That's awesome. Yeah, and again, thank you so much, Penny, for coming on this evening. You've been awesome as ever. And for anyone that's just watching this for the first time, we have a part 1 a few months back. Go check that out on the podcast. That is available. Lots of more detailed, different stories from tonight. Tinkerbell is there. I was going to talk about that, but I thought, no, we've done that. So
that's in here as well. Tinkerbell is in there. Yeah, that's
sort of your start. So if anyone wants to go and listen or learn about that, go over and watch the first episode. So thank you, Penny. I will see you in a bit. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Wow, guys, Penny is awesome. Please go and Google her up, see what she's been on TV. Go and buy one of her books, or buy all the books. You know, they're awesome read, very easy to get into, and they have you hooked quite quickly. Like she said, she's got Haunted Histories, the podcast. Go check that out. Go check out the social media for those. And yes, you will not be disappointed, believe me. So thank you again for joining me this evening. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, subscribe if you're not already, like everything, do all that social media stuff. This time next week we have another guest. We have Justin from the Paranormal Monkey podcast, so please come along, come and join us and see what really happens behind the microphone. But yes, guys, thank you so much. I'll see you next week.